The bullet grazed Oliver Preston's shoulder as he dove behind the overturned wagon, his heart hammering against his ribs like a wild mustang trying to break free. Blood seeped through his shirt, warm and sticky, but he had faced worse in his 26 years riding the dusty trails of California. It was 1878, and Placerville had seen its share of violence since the gold rush days, but tonight felt different. Tonight, someone wanted him dead before he could make it home, and that thought burned hotter than the lead that had torn through his flesh. He fired twice into the darkness, heard a curse and the sound of boots retreating down the alley behind the saloon. Oliver waited, breathing hard, counting the seconds until he was certain they had gone. Then he pushed himself up, clutching his shoulder, and staggered toward his horse. The paint mare nickered softly, sensing his distress. He had promised Zara he would be home by sunset. That had been 4 hours ago. The ride back to his ranch took longer than usual. Every jostle sent pain shooting through his shoulder, and he had to stop twice to rest. The moon hung full and bright above the Sierra Nevada foothills, casting silver light across the scrub brush and pine trees that dotted the landscape. Oliver thought about the woman waiting for him, and guilt twisted in his gut alongside the pain. She had come into his life like a summer storm, unexpected and fierce, changing everything. He had met Zara Grayson 3 months ago when she stepped off the stagecoach in Placerville with nothing but a worn carpetbag and determination in her green eyes. She was 23, fresh from Missouri, with auburn hair that caught fire in the sunlight and a stubborn set to her jaw that told him she was not a woman easily discouraged. Her father had died of consumption, leaving her alone in the world with distant relatives who made it clear she was a burden. So she had taken the money from selling his watch and bought passage west, chasing rumors of teaching positions in the mining towns. Oliver had been in town buying supplies when he saw her standing outside the hotel, studying a handwritten notice board with growing dismay. The schoolhouse position had been filled 2 weeks prior. She held herself with dignity despite the disappointment that clouded her features, but he saw her hands tremble as she folded the paper. Something had compelled him to approach her. Maybe it was the way she refused to cry despite the obvious distress. Maybe it was how she reminded him of the fierce independence his mother had possessed before she died. He had tipped his hat and offered to buy her a meal, expecting her to refuse. Instead, she had looked him straight in the eye and said, "Only if you let me work for it. I do not accept charity." That was how it started. He needed help at his ranch, a modest spread of 200 acres where he raised horses and ran a small herd of cattle. His cook had quit the month before to return to his family in Sacramento, and Oliver had been living on burned beans and jerky ever since. Zara had negotiated a fair wage, a small room in the main house and Sundays off. They shook hands on the deal and she moved in the next day. Those first weeks had been an adjustment. Zara knew nothing about ranch life, but she learned fast. She cooked meals that made him remember what real food tasted like. She mended his clothes, kept the house clean, and asked endless questions about the horses. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch, and she would read aloud from the books she had brought from Missouri while he cleaned his tack or whittled. Her voice was soft and musical, bringing stories to life in a way that made the lonely ranch feel less empty. Oliver had not intended to fall for her. He had buried that part of himself after Sarah Henderson had broken their engagement 5 years ago, choosing a banker from San Francisco over a horse rancher with dirt under his fingernails. But Zara was different. She did not care about his calloused hands or the fact that he lived miles from civilization. She laughed at his terrible jokes, challenged his opinions on everything from politics to the best way to break a young horse, and looked at him like he was worth something. The shift had happened gradually, then all at once. A month ago, he had been teaching her to ride his gentlest mare. She had fallen, nothing serious, just a tumble into the dirt. He had rushed to help her up, and when their eyes met, something passed between them that made his breath catch. She had dust on her cheek, and he had reached out to brush it away. His fingers had lingered against her skin, and she had not pulled back. "Oliver," she had whispered, and the way she said his name made something crack open in his chest. He had kissed her then, unable to stop himself. She had kissed him back with equal fervor, her fingers tangling in his hair. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, he had rested his forehead against hers and said, "I did not plan this." "Neither did I," she had replied, but she was smiling. "What do we do now?" "I do not know," he had admitted, "but I know I cannot imagine this place without you any more." They had talked for hours that night, sitting in the barn with the horses moving softly in their stalls. She told him about losing her mother as a child, about her father's slow decline, about feeling adrift in a world that had no place for unmarried women without means. He told her about his parents, both gone now, about building this ranch from nothing, about the loneliness that had become so familiar he had almost stopped noticing it. "I am falling in love with you," he had said as dawn began to lighten the sky. "I need you to know that. This is not just attraction or convenience. You have become essential to me, Zara." She had taken his hand, threading her fingers through his. "I already love you, Oliver Preston. I think I have since you offered to buy me that meal and did not treat me like a charity case or a fool for coming west alone. After that, everything had changed and nothing had changed. She still cooked and kept house, but now he helped her with the dishes so they could stand close together. She still read to him in the evenings, but now he held her against his chest, feeling her heartbeat against his ribs. They had not yet married, though he had bought a ring from the jeweler in town last week. He was waiting for the right moment, some perfect evening when he could ask her properly. Tonight was supposed to be special. He had gone into Placerville to finalize the sale of 3 horses to a buyer from Sacramento, a deal that would bring in enough money to expand the ranch and maybe build the larger house Zara deserved. The buyer had been late, then difficult, arguing over prices until Oliver's patience wore thin. By the time they settled on terms and shook hands, the sun was already setting. He had been leaving the saloon where they had met when the first shot rang out. 3 men, faces covered with bandanas, emerging from the shadows. Oliver recognized one by his build and the scar on his hand visible even in the dim light. Jack Morley, a ranch hand he had fired 6 months ago for mistreating the horses. The man had sworn revenge, but Oliver had not taken it seriously. That had been a mistake. Now, as his ranch finally came into view, Oliver sagged with relief. Lights glowed in the windows of the main house, warm and welcoming. He had built this place with his own hands, timber by timber, nail by nail. It was not fancy, just a sturdy 2-story structure with a wide porch and a stone chimney, but it was home. His home. Their home, if Zara wanted it to be. He dismounted slowly, every movement sending fresh waves of pain through his shoulder. The mare whickered again, and he took a moment to remove her saddle and turn her into the corral, even though his hands shook with exhaustion. The horses came first. His father had taught him that. Oliver climbed the porch steps, his boots heavy on the wood, and pushed open the door. The smell hit him immediately, rich and savory. Roasted chicken, potatoes, fresh bread. His stomach growled despite the pain. He stepped into the main room and stopped. Zara sat at the table, her head pillowed on her folded arms, fast asleep. The table was set for 2 with the good dishes they saved for special occasions. Candles had burned down to stubs in their holders, wax pooling on the tablecloth. Covered dishes sat between the place settings, the food inside surely cold by now. She had cooked dinner and waited for him. For hours, based on those candles, something in his chest twisted painfully, and it had nothing to do with the bullet wound. She wore her best dress, the green one that matched her eyes, and had pinned her hair up carefully. She had made an effort for him, prepared a special meal, and he had left her waiting. Alone. Worried. "Zara," he said softly, not wanting to startle her. She did not stir. Exhaustion and anxiety had clearly claimed her. Oliver moved closer, and that was when she must have sensed him. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then sharpening as she recognized him. Relief flooded her face, followed immediately by concern as she took in his disheveled appearance and the blood staining his shirt. "Oliver," she was on her feet instantly, rushing to him. "You are hurt. What happened? I was so worried when you did not come home. I thought maybe the buyer kept you late, but then it got darker and darker and you still were not here, and I started imagining terrible things." Her hands fluttered over him, careful not to touch the wound but clearly desperate to assess the damage. Oliver caught her fingers, stilling them, and brought them to his lips. "I am all right," he said, though his voice was rough with pain and emotion. "Jack Morley and some friends ambushed me in town, just a graze. I am sorry I worried you, Zara. I am so sorry I was not here. You were shot." Her voice rose, edged with panic. "Oliver, that is not just a graze. You are bleeding. Sit down right now before you fall down." She pulled out a chair and practically pushed him into it, then disappeared into the kitchen. He heard the pump working, the clatter of her gathering supplies. She returned with clean cloths, hot water from the stove, and the medical kit he kept in the cupboard. Her hands were steady now, focused on the task, though he could see fear lingering in her eyes. "This is going to hurt," she warned, then began carefully peeling back his shirt from the wound. Oliver hissed through his teeth as fabric pulled away from torn skin. Zara worked efficiently, cleaning the wound with gentle precision. The bullet had carved a furrow through the meat of his shoulder, painful and messy but not life-threatening. She packed it with clean cloth and bound it tight, her fingers sure despite the trembling he could see in her arms. "You need a doctor," she said when she finished. "This could get infected." "I will go to town tomorrow," he promised. "Doc Henderson will look at it properly. But for now, I just need to be here. With you." She sat down heavily in the chair beside him, and he saw tears beginning to spill down her cheeks. He reached for her with his good arm, pulling her close, and she came willingly, pressing her face against his chest and crying in great, shuddering sobs. "I thought you were dead," she choked out between gasps. "When it got so late and you still had not come home, I kept imagining you lying in a ditch somewhere, or thrown from your horse, or shot by outlaws. Every terrible possibility ran through my mind, and I felt so helpless just sitting here waiting. I kept the food warm as long as I could, kept the candles lit, kept telling myself you would walk through that door any minute. But the hours passed and you did not come, and I have never been so frightened in my entire life." Oliver held her tighter, his own eyes stinging. "I am here now. I am safe. I am sorry I scared you, sweetheart. I should have been more careful coming out of town. I should have watched my back better. Jack Morley is a coward and a fool, but I underestimated how much he hates me." She pulled back just enough to look up at him, her face blotchy and tear-stained but beautiful in the candlelight. "Promise me you will be more careful. Promise me you will not take stupid risks. I cannot lose you, Oliver. I finally found a home, found someone who sees me as more than a burden or an obligation, and the thought of losing that, of losing you, terrifies me." He cupped her face in his hand, thumb brushing away her tears. I promise. I will talk to Sheriff Morgan tomorrow, make sure he knows about Morley. The man cannot go around shooting at people because he got fired for being cruel to animals. And Zara, you need to know something. You are not just my employee or even just the woman I love. You are my future. Everything I do, every decision I make, I am thinking about us. About the life we can build together. She kissed him then, soft and desperate, and he kissed her back with everything he had. When they separated, both breathing hard, she rested her hand against his chest, right over his heart. I love you, she said simply. I know we have only known each other a few months, and maybe people would say it is too fast, but I have never been more certain of anything. You make me feel safe and valued and cherished. You make me feel like I belong somewhere finally. You do belong here, Oliver said fiercely. You belong with me. And I was going to wait for some perfect moment, but sitting here with you after almost dying tonight, I realize there is no such thing as a perfect moment. There is just now, and us, and this feeling in my chest that gets bigger every time I look at you. He reached into his pocket with his good hand, wincing slightly at the movement, and pulled out a small velvet box. Zara's eyes went wide as he opened it, revealing a simple gold band set with a small emerald. It is not much, he said, suddenly nervous. I know you probably dreamed of something fancier, but the emerald reminded me of your eyes, and I saw it in the jeweler's window, and I could not stop thinking about how it would look on your finger. Zara Grayson, will you marry me? Will you stay here with me, build a life with me, be my partner in everything? I promise I will do my best to make you happy every single day for the rest of our lives. She stared at the ring, then at him, then started crying again. But she was smiling too, laughing through the tears, and she nodded so vigorously he worried she might hurt her neck. Yes, she said. Yes, of course, yes. I would marry you tomorrow if we could manage it. I would marry you right this second if there was a preacher handy. Oliver Preston, you are the best thing that ever happened to me, and I cannot wait to be your wife. His hands shook as he slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. She held up her hand, admiring it in the candlelight, then threw her arms around his neck and kissed him again. This time the kiss was different, full of promise and joy and relief. We should eat, she said when they finally broke apart. The food is cold by now, but I made your favorite. I was planning to tell you tonight that I am not going anywhere, that this is where I want to be always. I wanted to make it special. It is special, Oliver assured her, and I do not care if the food is cold. You cooked it, so it will be delicious. She reheated everything on the stove while he sat at the table, watching her move around the kitchen with easy familiarity. This was his future, he thought. Coming home to this woman, sharing meals with her, building a life together. The thought filled him with a contentment he had not known was possible. They ate slowly, talking about everything and nothing. She told him about her day, how the chickens were laying well, how she had started a new book, how she had begun sketching plans for a garden come spring. He told her about the horse sale, about his plans for expanding the ranch, about wanting to build her a bigger house with a real parlor and maybe even a library for all her books. I like this house, she said, looking around the modest room. It feels like home already. But I would not object to more space eventually, especially if we are going to fill it with children someday. The casual way she said it, like it was a given that they would have a family, made his heart swell. How many children were you thinking? He asked, amused. She grinned at him over her chicken. At least 3, maybe 4. I always hated being an only child, and you seem like you would make an excellent father. 3 or 4, he repeated, shaking his head in mock dismay. You drive a hard bargain, Miss Grayson, soon to be Mrs. Preston. I like the sound of that, she said softly. Mrs. Zara Preston, it sounds right. After dinner, despite her protests about his injury, Oliver helped her clean up. They worked side by side at the basin, her washing and him drying with his good hand, occasionally bumping hips or stealing kisses. It was domestic and comfortable and perfect. When the dishes were done, they sat on the porch in the cool night air. Zara brought out blankets, and Oliver pulled her onto his lap despite the ache in his shoulder, kneading her close. The stars blazed overhead, brilliant in the clear mountain air. An owl hooted somewhere in the darkness, and the horses moved quietly in the corral. "I was so scared," Zara said again, her voice small. "When you were not here, I kept thinking about all the ways I could lose you. This country is hard and dangerous, and people die for the smallest reasons. What if I had never told you how I felt? What if you died not knowing how much you mean to me?" "Hey," Oliver said, tilting her chin up so she had to meet his eyes. "I am not going anywhere. I am too stubborn to die, and I have too much to live for now. We are going to grow old together, you and me. We are going to watch our children grow up, maybe see grandchildren someday. We are going to sit on this porch when we are both gray and wrinkled and argue about whose turn it is to feed the chickens." She laughed wetly. "I am going to hold you to that promise." "Good," he said, and kissed her forehead. "I want you to hold me to all my promises." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just breathing together, feeling the solidity of each other's presence. Then Zara said, "When do you want to get married?" "I know there are probably things we need to arrange, but I do not want a long engagement. I have waited my whole life to find someone like you, and now that I have, I do not want to wait any longer than necessary." Oliver considered. "How about a month from now? That gives us time to post banns at the church, for you to get a proper dress if you want one, to invite the few friends we have in town. We could have the ceremony at the church in Placerville, then have a small party back here at the ranch. Nothing fancy, just people who matter to us." "A month," Zara repeated, testing the words. "I can wait a month. Barely. Though I reserve the right to be insufferably impatient about it." He chuckled, the sound rumbling in his chest. "I would expect nothing less." The next morning, despite Zara's worries and fussing, Oliver rode into Placerville. His shoulder throbbed with every movement, but he needed to see Doc Henderson and talk to the sheriff. Zara had wanted to come with him, but he convinced her to stay at the ranch. He did not want her anywhere near town until he knew Morley and his friends had been dealt with. Doc Henderson cleaned and properly dressed the wound, tusking and muttering about foolish men who thought they were invincible. "You are lucky," the old doctor said, securing the bandage. "Another inch and that bullet would have shattered bone. As it is, you will heal fine if you keep it clean and do not do anything stupid like getting into more gunfights." "Yes, sir," Oliver said meekly. Sheriff William Morgan was less sympathetic. A grizzled man in his 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, he listened to Oliver's story with growing anger. "Jack Morley," he said, spitting the name like it tasted bad. "I should have run him out of town months ago. He has been causing trouble ever since you fired him, picking fights, making threats. I will round him up, him and whoever was helping him. Attempted murder is serious business, even in California. They will see the inside of a jail cell, I promise you that." "I appreciate it, Sheriff," Oliver said. "I am getting married in a month, and I would like to do it without worrying about someone taking shots at me." Morgan's weathered face split into a rare smile. "Congratulations, Preston. I heard you had a woman staying out at your place. Glad to hear you are making it official. She must be something special to put up with an ornery horse rancher like you." "She is," Oliver agreed, unable to keep the warmth from his voice. "She is everything." He stopped at the general store on his way out of town, buying supplies and a few treats for Zara. Fresh coffee, a new book he thought she would like, ribbons for her hair. The storekeeper, a kindly older woman named Mrs. Patterson, noticed the ring on his finger and demanded the story. By the time Oliver escaped, half the town probably knew he was getting married. Riding back to the ranch, Oliver felt lighter despite the pain in his shoulder. Morley would be dealt with, the wedding was set, and his future stretched out before him full of promise. He found Zara in the garden plot behind the house, turning over soil in preparation for spring planting. She had dirt on her nose and her sleeves rolled up, looking determined and beautiful. She dropped her spade and ran to him as he dismounted. "How did it go? What did the doctor say? Did you find the sheriff?" He answered all her questions, watching her face shift through relief, anger at Morley, satisfaction that the law would handle it. Then he presented her with his purchases, and she lit up like Christmas morning. "You did not have to do this," she said, but she was already leafing through the book, a collection of poems by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. "I wanted to," he said simply. "I like seeing you smile." That evening, she read to him from her new book while he mended a bridle, both of them settled comfortably in front of the fireplace. Her voice washed over him, the words about love and devotion feeling particularly apt. When she finished a poem, she looked up and caught him watching her. "What?" she asked, self-conscious. "Just thinking about how lucky I am," he said. "How my life would look right now if you had not stepped off that stagecoach. I would be eating jerky and beans, this house would be a mess, and I would still be half convinced I was better off alone." "You changed everything, Zara." She set the book aside and came to him, settling between his knees where he sat in the chair. "You changed everything for me too. I was so lost when I came here. I had no real plan, no idea what I was going to do. I was just running, hoping I would find something, anything, to make life worth living again. And then there you were, this gruff rancher with kind eyes, offering me a chance. You gave me hope when I had none left." He kissed her, slow and deep, pouring all his feelings into it. She responded in kind, her fingers tangling in his hair, her body pressing against his. When they broke apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. "1 month," he murmured. "Then you are mine forever." "I am already yours," she whispered back. "The wedding is just making it official." The month passed in a blur of preparation and anticipation. Zara worked with Mrs. Patterson and several other women in town to alter a dress, cream-colored silk with delicate lace trim. Oliver met with the preacher, arranged for food and drink for the party, cleaned the house from top to bottom despite Zara's insistence that she should do it. Sheriff Morgan made good on his promise. Jack Morley and his 2 accomplices were arrested 3 days after Oliver reported the shooting. They would stand trial in Sacramento, facing serious charges. Oliver testified before the circuit judge, and Morley glared at him the entire time, but there were witnesses who had seen the aftermath, and Doc Henderson testified about the wound. The 3 men were sentenced to 5 years each in the state prison. Oliver felt the weight lift from his shoulders, knowing Zara would be safe. 2 weeks before the wedding, a letter arrived for Zara from Missouri. Her aunt, the one who had made her feel so unwelcome, had somehow learned of her impending marriage and wrote to express surprise and perfunctory congratulations. The letter was cold and formal, more duty than genuine feeling. Zara read it aloud to Oliver, her voice flat. When she finished, she folded it carefully and set it in the stove, watching the paper curl and burn. "That is that," she said firmly. "I have a new family now. You are my family, Oliver. This ranch, this life, these people in Placerville who have been kind to me, that is all I need." He pulled her into his arms, humbled by her certainty. "You are my family too, the only family that matters." The night before the wedding, traditional as it was, Zara insisted on staying at the hotel in town with Mrs. Patterson. "It is bad luck for you to see me before the ceremony," she said, though her reluctance to leave was obvious in every gesture. "Superstitious nonsense," Oliver grumbled, but he helped her pack a small bag and drove her into Placerville in the wagon. He kissed her goodbye on the hotel steps, lingering longer than was probably proper, and she laughed against his mouth. "One more night," she promised. "Then we have the rest of our lives." The day of the wedding dawned clear and beautiful, the April sky a brilliant blue above the mountains. Oliver dressed carefully in his best suit, brushed until the fabric looked almost new, and rode into town early. His hands shook as he tied his horse outside the small white church, nerves and excitement warring in his chest. Inside, the church was decorated simply with wildflowers and ribbons. A handful of people had gathered, friends and friendly acquaintances from town, neighbors from surrounding ranches. Doc Henderson was there with his wife, Sheriff Morgan, and his family, Mrs. Patterson and her husband, the store clerk who had sold Oliver the ring. It was not a large crowd, but it felt right. These were people who had welcomed Zara, who had helped them both in small and large ways. The preacher, Reverend Matthews, was a jovial man in his 60s who had married half the couples in Placerville. He clapped Oliver on the shoulder and said, "Nervous, son?" "Terrified," Oliver admitted. Matthews laughed. "Good. That means you understand what you are getting into. Marriage is the greatest adventure there is. You will do fine." Someone started playing the piano, a simple wedding march, and the small congregation stood. Oliver turned toward the back of the church, and his breath caught in his throat. Zara stood framed in the doorway, backlit by morning sun, and she looked like an angel. The cream dress fit her perfectly, highlighting her figure while remaining modest and elegant. Her auburn hair was pinned up with flowers woven through the curls, and she carried a simple bouquet of wildflowers. But it was her face that undid him, the pure joy and love shining in her eyes as she looked at him. Mrs. Patterson walked beside her, acting as her escort since Zara had no family present, but Oliver barely noticed anyone except his bride. She seemed to float down the aisle toward him, her smile growing wider with each step. When she reached the front of the church, Mrs. Patterson gently placed Zara's hand in Oliver's and stepped back. "Hello," Zara whispered just for him. "Hello," he whispered back. "You look beautiful." "You look rather handsome yourself," she said, and he saw happy tears gathering in her eyes. Reverend Matthews began the ceremony, his voice warm and carrying easily through the small church. Oliver tried to focus on the words, the traditional vows and blessings, but he kept getting distracted by Zara's face, by the way her thumb traced circles on the back of his hand, by the reality that in a few minutes she would be his wife. When it came time for the vows, he spoke clearly and firmly, meaning every word. "I, Oliver James Preston, take you, Zara Marie Grayson, to be my lawfully wedded wife. I promise to love you, honor you, and cherish you for all the days of my life. I promise to be your partner in joy and sorrow, in prosperity and hardship. I promise to build a home with you, to stand beside you always, and to love you more with each passing day." Zara's voice shook slightly as she repeated her vows, but it was emotion, not uncertainty. "I, Zara Marie Grayson, take you, Oliver James Preston, to be my lawfully wedded husband. I promise to love you, honor you, and cherish you for all the days of my life. I promise to be your partner in joy and sorrow, in prosperity and hardship. I promise to build a home with you, to stand beside you always, and to love you more with each passing day." Oliver slid a simple gold band onto her finger, matching the emerald engagement ring she wore. She did the same for him, her fingers gentle as she pushed the ring into place. The metal felt strange and wonderful on his hand, a physical reminder of the commitment they were making. "By the power vested in me by the state of California and the Church," Reverend Matthews said, beaming at them both, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. Oliver, you may kiss your bride." Oliver did not need to be told twice. He cupped Zara's face in his hands and kissed her thoroughly, pouring every ounce of love and commitment into it. She kissed him back just as passionately, her arms wrapping around his neck. The small crowd erupted into applause and cheers, but Oliver barely heard them. All that mattered was the woman in his arms, his wife, his future. When they finally broke apart, both grinning like fools, Reverend Matthews cleared his throat pointedly. "There will be plenty of time for that later. Right now, let me introduce Mr. and Mrs. Oliver Preston." More applause, more cheers. Oliver took Zara's hand and they walked back down the aisle together, greeting their guests with handshakes and hugs. Outside the church, people threw rice, laughing and calling out blessings. Oliver helped Zara into the wagon, and they rode back to the ranch together, leading a procession of friends coming to celebrate. The party was simple but joyful. Tables set up outside were laden with food, neighbors having contributed dishes family style. Someone brought a fiddle, and soon there was music and dancing in the yard. Zara laughed as Oliver spun her around, neither of them particularly graceful dancers but not caring a bit. They ate cake that Mrs. Patterson had baked, 3 layers with buttercream frosting, and Oliver fed Zara a bite, getting frosting on her nose on purpose. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the guests started departing. There were final congratulations, hugs, promises to visit soon. Then finally, Oliver and Zara were alone. They stood on the porch, watching the last wagon disappear down the road, and Zara leaned against him with a contented sigh. "That was perfect," she said. "Everything about today was exactly right." "It was," Oliver agreed. "Though I am glad it is just us now." She looked up at him, her eyes dark with promise. "So am I." He lifted her into his arms, making her squeal with surprised laughter, and carried her over the threshold of their home. She was still laughing as he set her down in the main room, but the laughter faded into something deeper as their eyes met. He kissed her slowly, reverently, and she responded with equal tenderness. "I love you, Mrs. Preston," he murmured against her lips. "I love you too, Mr. Preston," she replied. And there was wonder in her voice, like she still could not quite believe this was real, that they had found each other against all odds. That night, they celebrated their marriage in the privacy of their bedroom, discovering each other with gentle exploration and growing passion. Oliver was careful with her, attentive to her needs and responses, and Zara was both shy and bold by turns, her trust in him absolute. They came together in love and commitment, sealing their vows in the most intimate way possible. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the darkness, Zara's head resting on Oliver's chest, his fingers trailing through her loose hair. The window was open to the cool night air, carrying the sounds of the ranch, the horses, the distant call of a coyote. "Happy?" Oliver asked softly. "More than I ever thought possible," Zara replied. "I feel like I have been searching my whole life for this, for you, for home. And now I have found it all. We are going to have a good life," Oliver promised. "It will not always be easy. Ranching is hard work and there will be difficult times, but we will face it together, and that makes all the difference." "Together," Zara echoed, pressing a kiss over his heart. "That is all I need." The seasons turned, each bringing its own challenges and joys. Zara threw herself into ranch life with determination, learning to garden, to preserve food, to help with the horses. She had a natural way with the animals, gentle but firm, and the horses responded to her with surprising docility. Oliver taught her everything he knew, proud of how quickly she adapted. They worked side by side from dawn to dusk, then fell into bed exhausted but satisfied. Their love deepened with each passing day, built on shared labor and laughter on quiet evenings and passionate nights. They bickered occasionally, both having strong opinions, but they learned to communicate, to compromise, to put their relationship above pride. By summer, Zara realized she was pregnant. She told Oliver one evening after dinner, nervous despite knowing he wanted children. He had been cleaning his boots by the door, and she just blurted it out before she could lose her courage. "I think I am carrying our baby," she said, twisting her hands in her apron. Oliver dropped the boot he was holding, his head whipping up to stare at her. "What? Really? Are you certain?" "As certain as I can be without seeing a doctor," she said. "I have missed my courses twice, and I have been feeling ill in the mornings, and I just know. I can feel it, Oliver. We are going to have a baby." He crossed the room in 3 long strides and pulled her into his arms, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around. "We are going to have a baby," he shouted, his voice full of wonder and joy. "Zara, we are going to be parents," she laughed, clutching his shoulders. "Put me down, you fool. You will make me dizzy." He set her down carefully, like she was made of spun glass, then knelt in front of her and pressed his ear against her still flat stomach. "Hello in there," he said softly. "This is your father. I cannot wait to meet you." Tears streamed down Zara's face as she stroked his hair. This was family. This was love. This was everything she had dreamed of during those lonely years in Missouri. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, though Zara battled nausea through the first months, and then backaches as she grew larger. Oliver fussed over her constantly, trying to do all the heavy work, bringing her tea and cushions, building her a rocking chair for the baby's room. She complained about his hovering but secretly loved the attention. In February of 1879, on a cold but clear night, Zara went into labor. Oliver rode hard to fetch Doc Henderson and Mrs. Patterson, then spent the next 12 hours pacing the house like a caged animal while the women tended his wife. He could hear her crying out in pain, and it nearly drove him mad knowing he could not help her. Finally, just after dawn, he heard a thin, wailing cry. His heart stopped, then started again triple time. Mrs. Patterson emerged from the bedroom, smiling broadly. "You have a son," she announced. "A healthy boy with good lungs, as you can hear, and your wife is tired but fine. You can go in now." Oliver practically ran into the room. Zara lay propped against pillows, looking exhausted but radiant, holding a small bundle wrapped in blankets. She looked up as he entered, and her smile was brilliant. "Come meet your son," she said softly. He approached slowly, almost afraid, and peered down at the tiny face peeking out from the blankets. His son. His and Zara's. The baby had a shock of dark hair and was scrunched up and red, fists waving angrily, but to Oliver he was the most beautiful thing in the world. "Can I hold him?" Oliver asked, voice hushed with awe. Zara carefully transferred the baby to his arms, and Oliver cradled his son against his chest with infinite care. The baby's eyes opened briefly, unfocused, but seeming to look right at him, and Oliver felt something fundamental shift in his chest. This was his child. He would protect this life with everything he had, would work every day to be the father this boy deserved. "What should we name him?" Zara asked, watching them with soft eyes. They had discussed names endlessly over the past months, never quite settling on one. But looking at his son, Oliver suddenly knew. "Thomas," he said. "Thomas James Preston, after my father, if that is all right with you." "Thomas," Zara repeated, testing the name. "I love it. Hello, Thomas. Welcome to the world, little one." Baby Thomas let out another wail, and they both laughed. Oliver carefully returned him to Zara's arms, and she began to nurse him, the baby latching on with determined efficiency. Oliver sat on the edge of the bed, one arm around his wife, watching his son eat, and felt a completeness he had never known existed. The next years passed in a blur of sleepless nights and toddler chaos, of first steps and first words. Thomas grew into a sturdy boy with his mother's green eyes and his father's stubborn determination. He followed Oliver everywhere, wanting to help with the horses even when he was barely tall enough to see into the stalls. In 1881, Zara gave birth again, this time to a daughter they named Emma Rose. She had Oliver's dark hair and Zara's delicate features, and she wrapped her father around her little finger from the first moment he held her. Oliver, who had grown up without sisters, was terrified of raising a daughter, but Zara assured him he was doing wonderfully. The ranch prospered. Oliver's reputation as a horse breeder grew, and buyers came from as far as San Francisco to purchase his stock. He expanded the operation carefully, hiring trustworthy hands, building new corrals and a larger barn. Zara managed the household with skill, raising their children, maintaining a large garden, and keeping the books for the ranch business with meticulous accuracy. In 1883, their third child was born, another boy they named Daniel after Zara's father. Daniel was quieter than Thomas, more thoughtful, with a love for books that made Zara beam with pride. Oliver built shelves in the main room to hold their growing collection, and Daniel could be found curled up reading whenever he was not working. The house they had once thought adequate became crowded with 3 active children. True to his word, Oliver began building a larger home in 1884. It took 2 years of work, done in between ranch duties, but the result was a beautiful 2-story house with 6 bedrooms, a proper parlor, a library for Zara and Daniel, and a wide porch that wrapped around 3 sides. Moving day was chaotic, children running between the old house and the new, Zara directing the placement of furniture while trying to keep track of Emma, who was determined to explore every corner of the new house. That night, after the children were finally asleep in their new rooms, Oliver and Zara stood on the porch of their new home, looking out over the ranch. "You remember the first night I came here?" Zara asked, leaning against the porch rail. "I was so nervous, worried I would not be able to do the job, worried I had made a terrible mistake coming west." "I remember," Oliver said, coming to stand behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "I was nervous too, worried about having a stranger in my house, worried I had been too impulsive. But then I watched you tackle every task with determination, watched you refuse to be defeated by things you did not know how to do, and I started to think maybe it was the best decision I had ever made." She turned in his arms, looking up at him with eyes full of love. "We have built something good here, Oliver. A home, a family, a life. Sometimes I have to pinch myself to believe it is real." "It is real," he assured her, kissing her forehead. "And it is only going to get better. We have so much more ahead of us." Watching our children grow up, maybe grandchildren someday, growing old together on this land we have built with our own hands. "Tell me," she said, as she had countless times over the years, "tell me again how you felt that first night I fell asleep at the table." Oliver smiled, pulling her closer. "I came home after almost being killed, hurting and exhausted, and there you were, asleep at the table with dinner you had cooked and waited hours to share with me. In that moment, even through the pain and fear, I realized you had become the most important person in my world. You were not just my employee or even just the woman I was courting. You were home. The sight of you waiting for me, caring about me, was worth more than any gold or land or fortune. That was when I knew I needed to marry you, that I could not imagine my life without you in it." "I love you so much," Zara whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. "After all these years, after everything we have been through, I love you more now than I did on our wedding day." "I love you too," Oliver replied. "More than words can express. You took a lonely ranch and turned it into a home. You took a man who thought he was destined to be alone and showed him what love and partnership really mean. You gave me children and purpose and joy. You are everything to me, Zara." They kissed as the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in brilliant colors. Inside the house, they could hear the children starting to stir, Emma calling for her mother. Real life, with all its demands and chaos, waited for them. But for this moment, they just held each other. Two people who had found love in the wild, hard country of the California gold fields, who had built something lasting and true. Years continued to pass, each bringing its own moments of triumph and struggle. There were droughts that tested their resilience, winters that seemed endless, market fluctuations that made them tighten their belts. But there were also wonderful times, celebrations and achievements that made the hard work worthwhile. Thomas grew into a fine young man, taking on more responsibility around the ranch. He had his father's talent with horses and worked alongside Oliver, training new stock. By the time he was 21 in 1900, he was managing much of the day-to-day operations, giving Oliver time to take on other interests. Emma, beautiful and spirited, married a rancher's son from Sacramento in 1902. The wedding was larger than Oliver and Zara's had been, with guests from all over the region, but Oliver still cried when he walked his daughter down the aisle. Zara squeezed his hand and cried right along with him, proud of the woman their little girl had become. Daniel, true to his nature, became a teacher. He moved to Sacramento to work at a school there, but he came home often, bringing books and stories about city life. Oliver and Zara were proud of all their children, proud of the different paths they had chosen. In 1905, Emma gave birth to Oliver and Zara's first grandchild, a girl they named Lily. Oliver held his granddaughter with the same awe he had felt holding his own children, marveling at how tiny she was, how perfect. Zara laughed at how gentle he was, remembering how terrified he had been with Thomas. "You are a natural grandfather," she teased. "I have had good practice," he replied, not taking his eyes off Lily's face. As they grew older, Oliver and Zara gradually stepped back from the day-to-day work of the ranch. Thomas and his new wife, a sweet woman named Sarah, took over most of the operations. Oliver still worked with the horses, unable to fully retire from what he loved, but the physically demanding labor fell to younger shoulders. They spent their time traveling to visit Emma and Daniel, playing with their growing number of grandchildren, and enjoying the life they had built together. The evenings found them on the porch of the house Oliver had built, rocking in chairs and watching the sunset, hands clasped together. In 1910, they celebrated their 30th wedding anniversary with a party attended by children, grandchildren, friends from town, and neighbors. Someone made a speech about how Oliver and Zara were proof that true love existed, that two people who chose each other could build a lasting partnership. Oliver and Zara stood together, older and grayer but with eyes still bright with love, and renewed their vows before their family. "I would choose you again," Oliver said, his voice carrying across the gathered crowd. "In every lifetime, in every circumstance, I would choose you, Zara Preston. You are my heart, my home, my everything." "And I would choose you," Zara replied, tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. "Every time, without hesitation. You are the best decision I ever made, Oliver Preston, the best thing that ever happened to me." They kissed to thunderous applause, and the party continued long into the night. But eventually, as always, it was just the two of them, sitting on their porch in the peaceful darkness. 30 years, Zara marveled. It feels like yesterday and forever all at once. Do you remember that night I came home hurt? Oliver asked. When I found you asleep at the table. I remember every detail, Zara said. I remember how scared I was waiting for you, how relieved I was when you finally came through that door, how right it felt when you asked me to marry you. That night changed everything. You changed everything, Oliver corrected gently. Long before that night, from the moment you stepped off that stagecoach with determination in your eyes and refused to accept charity, you were changing my life. I just did not fully realize it yet. We changed each other, Zara said. That is what love does. It transforms us, makes us better than we were alone. You gave me a home when I was lost. You gave me purpose when I had none. You gave me a family and a life beyond my wildest dreams. And I hope I gave you something equally valuable. You gave me everything, Oliver said fiercely. You took a house and made it a home. You took loneliness and replaced it with love. You gave me children and grandchildren, laughter and joy, purpose and partnership. I was half alive before you, Zara. You made me whole. They sat in comfortable silence, as they had done thousands of times over the years, just being together. The ranch around them was quiet, the horses settled for the night, the cattle peaceful in the distant pastures. This land had witnessed their entire love story, from that first awkward dinner to raising a family to growing old together. Tell me what you are thinking, Zara said eventually, sensing Oliver's contemplative mood. I am thinking about legacy, he admitted. About what we leave behind. This ranch will go to Thomas and he will run it well. Emma has her own family, her own life. Daniel is making a difference teaching children in Sacramento. They are all doing well, all happy. We did that, Zara. We built this family, created these opportunities for our children. We did, she agreed. And we have grandchildren now, a new generation starting their lives. Our legacy is in them, in the values we taught our children, in the love we showed them. They will carry that forward, teach it to their own children. I have no regrets, Oliver said suddenly, looking at her with eyes still bright despite his age. Not a single one. Every choice I made that led me to you, every moment we have shared, I would not change any of it. This life with you has been everything I could have asked for and more. Zara's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. No regrets, she echoed. Only gratitude. Gratitude for that day you offered to buy me a meal, for taking a chance on a desperate woman with nowhere else to go. Gratitude for every single day since then, the good ones and the hard ones, because we faced them all together. They sat on that porch until the stars came out, blazing across the California sky just as they had decades ago when Oliver and Zara were young and just beginning their journey together. The world had changed so much since 1878, but their love had remained constant, a steady flame that had never dimmed. As they finally rose to go inside, Oliver took Zara's hand just as he had on countless other nights. She squeezed his fingers, and they walked into their home together, still side by side, still partners in everything, still as much in love as they had been that night. He came home to find her asleep at his table waiting for him. In the years that followed, Oliver and Zara continued to be fixtures on their ranch and in Placerville, beloved by their family and respected by their community. They watched more grandchildren arrive, each one bringing new joy. They saw Thomas expand the ranch even further, making the Preston name synonymous with quality horses throughout California. They attended Emma's children's school plays and birthday parties, doted on Daniel's two sons during summer visits. They grew older together, moving slower but still moving, still active in their lives and the lives of their children. Oliver's hair turned completely white, and Zara's face gained more lines, but they both wore their age with grace. They were living proof that love could last, that commitment and partnership could endure through decades of challenges and changes. On quiet mornings, they would sit at their kitchen table drinking coffee, and Zara would sometimes shake her head in wonder. "Can you believe this all started because I fell asleep waiting for you that night?" she would say, and Oliver would reach across the table to take her hand, his touch as warm and sure as ever. "Best thing that ever happened to me," he would reply, "coming home to find you there." Knowing someone cared enough to wait. Their love story became something of a legend in Placerville, the tale of the desperate woman who came west with nothing and the lonely rancher who took a chance on her. Young couples would ask them for advice, and Oliver and Zara would share what they had learned. "Love is a choice you make every day," Zara would say. "It is not always easy or romantic. Sometimes it is choosing to be patient when you want to be angry, choosing to compromise when you want your way, choosing to stay when things get hard. Love is partnership," Oliver would add. "It is working together toward common goals, supporting each other's dreams, being willing to carry more when your partner is struggling. It is showing up every single day and choosing each other again and again." They lived to see the new century firmly established, witnessed automobiles becoming common and electricity reaching even rural areas. The world changed around them, but their love remained a constant, an anchor in turbulent times. When Oliver was 74 and Zara 71, they hosted a family reunion at the ranch. All three children came with their spouses and children, and the house overflowed with noise and laughter and love. Oliver stood on the porch, surveying the chaos, and felt a profound sense of satisfaction. This was success. Not the size of the ranch or the money in the bank, but this family, these connections, this love that had multiplied and spread. Zara came to stand beside him, slipping her hand into his. "What are you thinking?" she asked, the same question she had asked 1,000 times over the years. "I am thinking that I am the luckiest man who ever lived," Oliver replied. "I came home one night expecting nothing more than a cold house and loneliness, and instead I found you. You were asleep at my table, you had cooked dinner and waited hours for me, and in that moment, my entire life changed. Everything good that has happened since then, all of this," he gestured at the family spread across the yard, "came from that night, from you choosing to wait for me, from us choosing each other. We built something beautiful," Zara said softly, leaning against his shoulder. "Out of nothing but hope and hard work and love, we built this entire life. I would not trade a single moment of it." They stood together watching their family, the product of their love and their life together, and knew that whatever time they had left would be spent exactly like this, side by side, hand in hand, still choosing each other every single day. The sun set over the Sierra Nevada mountains, painting the sky in brilliant colors, and Oliver pressed a kiss to Zara's temple. "I love you," he murmured. "I love you too," she replied, "forever and always." And in that moment, surrounded by the family they had created, standing on the land they had built their dreams on, Oliver and Zara Preston knew that their love story had been everything a love story should be. Wild and tender, challenging and rewarding, and above all, true. From that night he came home to find her asleep at his table to this moment decades later. Their love had endured, grown, and flourished, a testament to the power of choosing each other every single day, no matter what came. Their story ended not with dramatic tragedy but with quiet contentment, with lives well lived and love well given, with a legacy that would continue through their children and grandchildren for generations to come. They had found each other in the wild west of California in 1878. Two lost souls who became each other's home, and they loved each other faithfully until their final days, proving that true love, when nurtured with patience, respect, and unwavering commitment, really can last a lifetime.